Alrighty, quotations. How much should we use? When should we use a quotation? Okay, so when I started my PhD, I started a PhD in sociology. I didn't finish it, but I had a professor who said no more than one quote every 5 pages. Sometimes, so I'm an English literature major, and my first master's was in English, so that's hard for me. But the idea is be as sparing as possible. Paraphrase as much as we can. I want to come here. So this is also on the other lists of links. Columbus State Community College. I really like this kind of, they give us kind of a quick method for using it. And I really like these steps to paraphrasing that Lindsay here gave us. Reading the original text, read it and make sure you read it multiple times. Have you talked much about reading strategies? Okay. So a good reading strategy when you come up to a new paper, read the introduction and the literature review, and then skip to the discussion. So you get a good kind of picture of where you're going, of where that is. Then go back and read it through again. So parts of it you'll get reading the second time and second time. But the methods and the results, they'll make more sense once you've already read the discussion. Right? You have a sense of where you're going. This is how we get there. Does that make sense? It is a little bit time consuming, but it really helps with comprehension and understanding. The other thing I would recommend, if you're reading on the computer and you're working with a PDF, use the marking tools and write questions that come into your mind. Or sometimes what I'll do is if something surprises me in a negative way, I'll draw a frowny face next to it. Or something surprises me in a positive way, put a smiley face next to it. So when I'm coming back through it, I've already created steps for myself to understand things. And sometimes those frowny faces, I go ahead and wipe them away because it's like, oh, okay, now that I've looked at this a second time, it makes more sense. Okay. So read the text and get a good sense of it. Then set it aside. Don't have it out while you're trying to paraphrase. Why not? Yeah. Right? When you're looking at the original text, sometimes it's really easy to just, oh, I like that wording or things like that. When I was teaching, I'd hear this all the time from students who talked about paraphrasing. They're like, but they said it so well. Sure, they're professionals. As students, we need to learn to internalize what they're saying. Number 2, using your memory, write down the main points or concepts. Right, so you're creating from what you remember, kind of a list of high points. If you're writing about a specific passage, a paragraph, you're summarizing a paragraph. What are the main ideas in that paragraph? Change the structure of the text by varying the opening, changing the order of the sentences, lengthening or shortening sentences. All right, so one of the things that a lot of students will do is they'll take like the original. How many of you heard this? I'll take the original and just replace words. I'm seeing some people with a guilty expression that they're saying no. That actually is copyright violation, right? Because the structure of how an idea is presented, that's part of the expression of the idea. So one of the things that I like to do when I'm doing a paraphrase, I like to start with some of the information at the end of the passage that I'm summarizing. I start with that. So right there, I'm already changing the structure, and it becomes a little easier to do that. So it's a quick one. Changing sentence orders. Don't try to imitate their sentence order, especially if they're a really kind of eloquent writer and you're not an eloquent writer. Don't try to imitate it. Try to imitate using your sense of writing. Number 4, replace keywords within sentences, synonyms, or phrases with similar meanings. Now, sometimes here, especially if they're using a term that's new to you or a term that they have created, this is one of the cases where you can put it in quotations if it's a unique term, right? Make sure, though, if you do that, make sure you have the page number, right? So you can document it correctly. And then check your notes again to make sure, right, have I plagiarized? Did I get the right idea? One of the things I love about this is they give us a couple of examples. So original text, if the existence of a signifying ape was unsettling for linguistics, it was also startling news for animal behaviorists. So she gives us 2 versions of an unacceptable paraphrase. Davis observed that the existence of a signifying ape unsettled linguistics and startled animal behaviorists. What's wrong with this? That might be easier. Or if you follow the link, whatever. What's wrong with this first paraphrase? Yeah, she's borrowing the exact phrase, or I guess I said she because because that's her. But the author here has committed plagiarism in that they're taking phrases from the original one. What do they not have that could be there and make it okay? Yeah, I mean, and sometimes, right, I will do this sometimes in my own writing. If I really like the initial phrasing, I'll go ahead and just put quotes in there. I'll work them into a different sentence structure. But yeah, I mean, this person could have covered themselves with quotation marks. All right. Unacceptable borrowing of structure. Davis observed that if the presence of a sign language using chimp was disturbing for scientists studying language, it was also surprising to scientists studying animal behavior. You seeing the problem here? Yeah, this is one where they've taken the original sentence and just plugged in synonyms. All right, and gives an example of an acceptable paraphrase. Davis observed both linguists and animal behaviorists were taken by surprise upon learning of an ape's ability to use sign language. One of the big things with paraphrasing is use language that you're comfortable with. Right. We're going to talk a little bit about professional versus personal voice. So you want to use a professional voice, but use language you're familiar with. Let me give you another tip. Another tip that you can do if you're paraphrasing something. I always like to imagine my Grandpa Anderson. My Grandpa Anderson was a business professor and mathematics professor. Super intelligent guy. It was amazing. When he was in his 80s, he had taken his book, and it's kind of cool. My grandfather is kind of the godfather of real estate education in the United States. His book was a standard text. But he took his book and he started learning Spanish so he could translate it himself. But I always like to think, okay, what if I'm explaining this? How would I explain this to Grandpa? Right? He's intelligent, but he may not know everything that I'm talking about. So I've got to fit my level to him, right? But also then being aware of, okay, I'm not plagiarizing, because if I plagiarized, Grandpa would probably have a few words to say to me. Okay, does this make sense? All righty. So to have a quick little exercise with this. Okay. So a little help here, please. Here's an exercise. Go ahead and click that. And this is the same quote on the page. What I'd like to do is give y'all a couple minutes and start paraphrasing this. If you're sitting near somebody, talk. And this will open up to people in the chat if you want to put down some of what you did. Again, you don't need to worry about doing everything, just a couple sentences. I just want to give you the chance to focus on this idea, concept of paraphrasing. Alrighty. So we can keep moving. This is a paraphrase that I wrote for this passage. While wearing a bike helmet can keep riders safer by mitigating the shock to the head in accidents. Unfortunately, 75 of the more than 1,000 75% of the more than 1,000 persons killed in bicycle accidents every year result from head injuries, roughly half of which are children. Right, so I've kind of moved, what I did for this was use some synonyms, but also moved information around, just varying the structure. And then this is the in-text site, would be the in-text citation. What was this like for you? Paraphrasing can be tough. A good paraphrase can be tough. So give yourself some slack for struggling with it, because it can be tricky, right? Because oftentimes what we're getting new information, but we're also getting the other author's voice. And so what we want to do is we want to get out of the way of the other author, or step aside from the other author's voice in our paraphrases. But again, give yourself permission to struggle with this. It's not easy. Okay, quickly review citations. There are two types of citations. And if this were in presentation mode, they'd come up individually. In-text citation, what are those? What was that? Yeah, they're in the body of the work. And in-text citations, I like to think of these, I like to think of in-text citations a little bit differently. Most people say it points to the reader, to the reference and works cited lists. But there's also another aspect that goes along with citations, right? When we read a paper that's well cited and well documented, what's our impression of the writer? What was that? Yeah, don't we get a sense of this person knows what they're talking about? And that's the impression we do want to leave with, especially with professors. You don't ever want your professor saying, do they really know this? But also if you do publish professionally, right, you want to be seen as somebody who can be believed. And good citations help with that. And then the reference and works cited gives full bibliographical information at the end of the essay. Okay, so let's talk about in-text citations. This is the basic normal pattern. Last names, if there's multiple authors, comma, year, period, and then the page numbers. Couple important variations. So if you have multiple authors on this first one, use an ampersand, so the and sign before the last one. And the other one, this is called a narrative citation. You give the names of the authors and the year of publication, go on and say what you're going to say, and then put the page numbers at the end. So kind of two different ways of putting it. Generally, this will come at the end of the statement. Does that help? Conventionally, the first time you refer to a writer or a work, conventionally you use narrative. Just kind of introduces it, gives a kind of a little bit more of a general introduction to it, and then you can come back to this. That's not set in stone, but that's often what happens in practice. Alrighty. Thank you all for your patience. This is a lot to get in, and that's one of the reasons why I put the PDF up, so you have something to come back to.